Kamasi, feel free.
Yes. Good afternoon to everybody, and welcome to this seminar series, the first one in the series. I should put today in Namibia is a public holiday. It's Independence Day. That's why we are going to be very few, but that's okay. I mean, you can always not have everybody. So it's Independence Day of Namibia today. That's why a lot of staff and who wanted to come can't be around, but it's fine. If there is anything we record, then it can always be distributed to them. So we have Robert Esuruku, a professor at the Institute of Development Studies, Makerere, that is in Kampala, Uganda. He's worked a lot on development issues. Yes, published quite a lot, has quite a lot. And today he's going to speak, to take us through this concept of Ubuntu. So let us welcome him to do that. And I think that's enough. Let's hear from him.
Thank you very much, Professor Kamanzi, for your introduction. And I would like to share my screen, if I can.
Should be possible. If you check it.
Yeah, something is happening. Yeah, you can share, I think. Yeah.
Can you now see it?
Yes, perfect.
Yes.
Good, thank you. When Professor Kamanzi asked me to have a conversation on Ubuntu, I told him, I am not a Bantu. I hardly understand Ubuntu the way the Bantu people understand it. So to have a conversation on Ubuntu, the philosophy of Ubuntu. And he told me that precisely that is the reason why you should be able to present a paper or a conversation on Ubuntu, because
Did we lose him, or I'm the one who is missing something?
No, I think we lose him.
Oh.
we seems to be having technical problem. Am I back? Can you hear me?
Yes, you were back. Now again, there's some silence, but yeah. I suggest probably you remove your video. You remove your video and just
Okay.
Probably that might help. Remove your video, and you can you share the screen.
Okay. Do we have the screen? Can I continue with the presentation?
Yes, I think, yes. We can see the screen shared.
Good. Seems to be not moving at all. But if you can hear me, I will go ahead and make a presentation.
Okay.
And that is fine then. The outline of my paper, my presentation this afternoon is to very briefly have a small introduction and also make comments on the key literature of this presentation and talk about the concept of a philosophy of Ubuntu, the pillars of a philosophy of Ubuntu, the values of a philosophy of Ubuntu, and I will provide a critique of a philosophy of Ubuntu, and also reflect on why I think Ubuntu is a philosophy for research. I am not able to move at all my PowerPoint. I don't know what happened. Ah, there we go. So that is the outline of the presentation this afternoon. Short introduction, key literature. I'll talk about the concept of a philosophy of Ubuntu, pillars of a philosophy of Ubuntu, and the values of a philosophy of Ubuntu, and critique. And thereafter make a little bit of reflection of the relevance of a philosophy of Ubuntu for research. Ubuntu philosophy has its roots in African humanism. And actually its core is rooted on the basis of humanity. That community is the basis of society. And therefore it has this idea of collective humanity. And the thinkers behind the philosophy of Ubuntu are Nelson Mandela of Southern Africa, Azikiwe and WEF-FABI of Nigeria, Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Kenneth Kaunda, popularly known as the KK of Zambia, and Leopold Senghor of Senegal, and of course, Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, are mainly associated with the philosophy of Ubuntu. But they are not the only thinkers of the philosophy of Ubuntu. There are quite many thinkers who continuously reflect on the philosophy of Ubuntu, such as Koza, such as John Mbiti, Desmond Tutu, Kwesi Wiredu. All these are key individuals who continuously reflect on the philosophy of Ubuntu. Ikinobe, for example, in his book, Philosophical Perspectives on Communalism and Morality in African Tradition, offers a unique insight and argument about understanding communalism and its usage, and how communalism is useful for African development and from the tradition of the philosophy of Ubuntu, which is a key. And also Koza, Ruel, Let Africa Lead, reflected heavily about understanding Ubuntu, and it tries to give us an insight from a leadership perspective, but clearly defining the concept of Ubuntu. Mbigi is another one, Ubuntu, the dream in African management. It tries to give us a framework in which Ubuntu is understood from the perspective of management, which in itself is a key. And of course, John Mbiti, African Religion and Philosophy, provides the gist for understanding the philosophy of Ubuntu, when he clearly says a human person is understood from the perspective of being in a collection. So in a communion, I am because we are because I am in it. That in itself reflects the philosophy of Ubuntu, which we shall try to understand more when we go into the conceptual issues of it. Desmond Tutu, in No Future Without Forgiveness, actually uses Ubuntu as a framework for understanding the concept of conflict and forgiveness, which in itself is very key. And a number of researchers in the area of conflict and peace also use Ubuntu as a framework to design transitional justice, the basis on which individuals have conversation and deliberate about peace. Wiredu, of course, Kwesi, in philosophy and African culture, also provides some perspective on African communalism. Let's try to understand the concept of Ubuntu. This concept, when it is presented to people, as soon as you mention Ubuntu, there is a way that the people clearly try to say, yes, we understand Ubuntu. But when you ask them to talk about it, you realize that sometimes there are so many Ubuntus as there are people who talk about the concept of Ubuntu. So Ubuntu is difficult to define. It has a lot of definitions as such, and there are quite a number of people who attempt to reflect on Ubuntu. And as such, when you look at what they write, you find quite a number of definitions. For example, Ruel, Koza, Chikanda, Jo Tofe, Nononkantu, Shiso. All this try to define Ubuntu. And also you see some elements of commonality in their definition, but always bits of differences. The concept Ubuntu originates from the Xhosa expression of Umuntu, Ngumundo, Gambanye, Abandu, which means that each individual's humanity is ideally expressed in a relationship with the other. And also from the Zulu phrase, Umundu, Ngumundu, Ngambandu, which means a person is a person through other person. Ubuntu consists of a prefix, ubu, and also stem ndu, ubu, evokes an idea of being in general. a human being, being available. Thus, Ubuntu is a fundamental ontological and epistemological category in the African thought of the Bantu-speaking people. According to Koza, Ubuntu, therefore, is an African worldview. Koza first continues to argue that the distinctive collective consciousness of an African is manifested in one, behavior patterns, expression, and spiritual self-fulfillment. And this is further expressed in the values such as universal brotherhood of Africans, sharing and treating the other people as humans are concretized. Maybe I should explain more about this. Most of us who come from African families and live in urban areas still connect with the rural folks. For example, a rural folk who knows you from the village and where you come from will feel entitled that he sends his or her child to you to stay in the city so that such a child gets a good education and does not really think so much whether you're able to pay for this kid or not, because there is universal brotherhood and sisterhood, and there is a sharing and a treating other people as a human. And this is concretized in an expression of reality. And so that should be normal. So Koza defines Ubuntu as an African value system that means humanness or being human, a worldview characterized by values such as caring, sharing, compassion, communalism, communocracy, a new term introduced by him. And also, this is clearly associated with what the Africans call a culture of expression, which is universal in its application. The individuals who think about the philosophy of Ubuntu always think about universal brotherhood and sisterhood, and which for Mbingi means participation, and which he actually also calls a network of concepts such as group solidarity, compassion, respect, dignity, and collective unity, all express the idea of Ubuntu. Ubuntu is also associated with a much deeper meaning, relational meaning. So this is also associated with the levels in which individuals have what we call Ubuntu. The level of Ubuntu that one has depends on how much or how well one behaves towards human in a way that recognizes interconnectedness, interdependence, and also promotes a community. So that means there are levels of Ubuntu. One can be able to evoke more levels of Ubuntu compared to the other person. Recently, Desmond Tutu popularized this philosophy in his book, No Future Without Forgiveness. He describes someone with Ubuntu as a person who is open and available to others, affirming the other, has a proper self-assurance. So what are the pillars of Ubuntu philosophy? There are mainly 3 pillars of Ubuntu philosophy. And these 3 pillars, interpersonal values, which is regard for others, intrapersonal values, which is regard of self, and environmental value, regards for community. The interpersonal values are characterized as hospitality, coexistence, forgiveness, equity, and being friendly. These are associated with the self and the other. And the second one is intrapersonal value, regard of self. This include fairness and justice, duties and rights, honesty, respect, compassion, respect for human dignity and human well-being. And the third part is the Ubuntu environmental principle, which includes service to humanity, being respectful, sharing of resources, being caring, honest, trustworthy in one's relationship with the other. These 3 pillars are all interconnected, and it is clearly expressed in the framework of the individual, the family, and the community, and environment, and spirituality. For example, the way the individual conducts himself focuses on the present and also the future generation, and also those who have gone before them. So therefore, individuals' world consists of the present, the future, and the living dead. Ubuntu philosophy has quite a number of values. One of such value for the Ubuntu philosophy is based on justice, responsibility, equality, and collectiveness. All this, we look at them as being valuable. These, if you focus on them clearly, these are ethical principles that a human person is supposed to have. There is a sense in which Ubuntu as a concept and African communitarian ethos imposes a sense of moral obligation regarding the responsibility for others, even before you think about it. It's very important that you are there because of the others. So it is your responsibility. If you find a neighbor's child misbehaving, it is your responsibility to correct that, depending on the situation that you found. Thereafter, then you accompany the child to their child's home, and you explain to the parents exactly what happened and what decision you took as a member of the community. Ubuntu is also associated with the core social work value of social justice, which actually refers to an ideal condition in which all human beings, all members of society have the same basic rights, protection, opportunities, obligation, and also social benefit. So it is my right, as anyone else's right in the community, to help the elderly. Ubuntu is a collective good because it should be clear in everyone's mind that you belong to the community. You are not as an individual. So there is almost no space for individualistic behavior, for being self-centered. So Ubuntu is a communitarian in nature. But what is very important also about Ubuntu is that it celebrates differences. If we have unique differences, that helps the communities to grow. That is looked at as important, and it is recognized, and it is celebrated, and it is cherished. You do so for the sake of the community, and therefore the community will be proud of such a difference. So long as unity being. I'd like to provide a critique for the philosophy of Ubuntu. Ubuntu philosophy does not take into consideration power dynamics and inequality that exists in society. For example, there is always respect for the elders, regardless of their position in the society, regardless of their moral standing. He is an elder. He has to be respected. And it is also demonstrated and strengthened in some greetings, such as, I hold your feet. And it is from a minor to a person who is older than the minor. I hold your feet. You rise up. Now, the question will be, how do you hold the feet of any moral person and as a moral authority to say, you rise up to my level? So this in itself, for me, raises a question of inequality and unequal power dynamics that is not properly exercised. There is emphasis on a community and interconnectedness, which sometimes may discourage individual autonomy and accountability. You find because there is a support base in the communities, there are individuals who do not in any way contribute to the community and also to their families. For example, if you are born 6 children in a home and all of you are married, but even then among you, there are others who are prosperous. There are those who perceive themselves they cannot be able to provide for their family, will feel free to send their family members to you so that you take care of them. Because you are a family, you cannot send them away. You have to take care of them and you live with them. Even if you have limited space, some may sleep in your sitting room, some may sleep in your kitchen, but you remain with them. And so that in the community you have a standing, that you have provided what you can, and the community is grateful for your service. This makes some individuals not to own up to their own responsibility because others are there to provide for them. Ubuntu philosophy also articulates the importance of value and respect, dignity, solidarity, consensus, which demands conformity and a loyalty to group. However, African societies constituted by people from different cultures and values and backgrounds. For example, I am not a Bantu. I am from Sudanic origin, a secular society. In my culture, when the colonial government tried to introduce chiefs, our community refused that we cannot have chiefs because every man is a chief in his own household. Therefore, we cannot have somebody to whom we can be responsible. If you government says that we should report to you, perhaps that is enough. And there is this other one that we see, the missionaries. What we see different from them is they do not strongly impose themselves on us. We may tolerate this, but we do not tolerate chiefs over us because we are all chiefs in our own household. So this, in a way, also expresses some differences. Although you see there are certain commonalities that cuts across humanity, such as human dignity, issues of solidarity, issues also around compassion. But somehow it is expressed in a context-specific manner, not in a generalized form. Allow me to have a little bit of reflection of Ubuntu as a research philosophy. Ubuntu supports collectivism over individualism. And Ubuntu asserts that society gives human beings their humanity. If you look at this basic assumption of Ubuntu, it focuses more on the community, and it also focuses more on society. So the question of common good is addressed here in collectivism over individualism. But this, in a way, does not take away other people's individuality. Individuality always remains, but there is, in a way, contribution just because we are human. Some Kange viewed Ubuntu as representing the Ubuntu, respect, guided individual, and Ukama, family, Ujamaa, Harambe, communalism, and Uhuru, evoking independence and being just in society. Of course, research and development studies, in most cases, starts from a perspective, a normative perspective. So a normative perspective is reflected clearly in the way Ubuntu is conceptualized. So this lends itself in a way appropriately to conceptualize a research that is community-based. So if you look at these views as presented by Sam Kangi, the views around respect-guided individual, Undugu, Harambe, Ujama. There is a lot that we learn in this process. It focuses on respectful relationship, which is important. It also focuses on issues related to social justice. The social justice here is also very important. So if you look at respectful relationship, here we are talking about ethics, cooperative learning, which is needed, is participation, social justice, is research that addresses issues related to poverty, gender, inequality, and it becomes important. And in this, Ubuntu also lends itself appropriately. So Ubuntu as an overarching philosophical framework appropriately also lands itself in social work, social welfare, in development, more so at the lower levels. It helps to also strengthen relationship between families, communities, society, environment, and also community at the spiritual realm. I think for now, I will stop here, and then I will be taking questions, and can open it up for a deeper conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great presentation. And yeah, really, really interesting. And I think the best way is that someone who have a question, or if people have question, can speak or raise the hand, and then we can then we can come into a discussion. And I think it's possible we can do that very free. There is another question that we stop the recording now. I think that's the best way. Then everybody can speak free and have no fear that he is get recorded. So if it's fine for everyone, I would stop the recording now. Okay, then I will stop it.